Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with Maddie B, my co-host. We've got a slew of topics today. First off, I do want to mention, I know Skype, they updated and it's messed up. So it keeps saying that Matt, if you're watching the video, there's a little thing. I think you might have saw it last week with Rick. It says speakers muted, but right now there's no way for me to remove that. So unfortunately, we're stuck with that and the weird Skype title bar for this week, but I'm looking into it. We have a big mailbag, so we're going to tie that into the Steel City update, the Le'Veon Bell stuff. But I'm going to kick it off, sticking with Pennsylvania, my high tempo this week. SB Nation has been doing their previews for the college football season, and a couple of their writers made the comparison that Penn State is on the same track Clemson was a few years ago, where Dabo Swinney took a few years to build up their team into a contender, and they're recruiting at a clip that can win them the national championship. So their underdog that they picked for this season to win the national championship, other than the big dogs, Ohio State's, Alabama's, they picked Penn State. And I read the article, and my beef with it is Penn State's actually not recruiting as well as Clemson was when they made that jump. Dabo Swinney, it took him years. People rip on Harbaugh for not beating Ohio State, his rival. Dabo Swinney barely beat Steve Spurrier at all. I think he was like 1-5 against him. And the first one was whenever he was an interim coach, those first couple years. I could be off a game or two. But essentially, he was started on a 4 or 5 game losing streak to South Carolina once he was named head coach. He got the first win as the interim. They hired him. And then he lost from there on out. He lost recruiting battles, Marcus Lattimore and Jadeveon Clowney. Jeez, I can't even pronounce it now that he's with the Texans. But he lost all those. He lost in state. As soon as Steve Spurrier retired, that kind of gave him the push where he was able to get those in-state recruiting guys and those extra kids from Florida that were choosing between the two schools. I don't want to say they're leftovers, but you're in the middle of a hotbed. You have Georgia on one side, and you have Florida on the other. So Dabo starts winning those, and Clemson actually had a top 10 roster in terms of talent composite. 24/7 Sports, they do one every year, and as far back as they started, Rivals or Scout, back in like the 1998 season, a team to win the national championship had to have top 10 talent, just overall. They didn't put it out yet, so we don't know how close Penn State is to that. But James Franklin only had one top 10 recruiting class, and that was last year's 7th ranked class. And I did have, let me just see if I can find my notes. I think his other two classes were 16, 16, and 14. So he's right outside that range. I don't think that 7th ranked class this year, after losing what they lost in Gesicki, and I think Gesicki's gone, and Saquon Barkley, I don't think that's going to be enough to put them into that upper echelon. Are they close? Yes. Will he keep recruiting at that? Compared to Joe Paterno was landing top 10 classes. He's not quite recruiting as well as he did with a 4th ranked class, 6th ranked class, 12th ranked class. He hasn't had a top 5 class yet. If he does that, if they win this year and he does that, I could see them competing. What happens is you get to the big stage, look at a team like Oklahoma. You can win, you can compete. They were competitive in their game, but overall, those late quarters, it's really tough to win if you don't have the depth. And I think that's where Penn State falls short. And I'll leave it at that. Definitely look into the article. I'll send it out from our accounts. It's a good thing if you're a Penn State fan, things are looking up. But I'll leave it at that, and I want to see, Matt, do you have anything else to add about that?
I think going off of that, the thing that a lot of people leave off is Clemson really was innovative with their use of social media and things like that helped their recruiting, and it really put their recruiting on such a different level than a lot of teams that I think by them being so far ahead, they were able to pull in some really, really good recruiting classes that led to where they are right now. I think the rest of the NCAAs are now understanding how important that social media aspect is, and some of the facilities and things like that for recruits. So they're starting to spend the money and putting the resources into that stuff to make it more interesting for recruits to be interested in their university. So I think Penn State definitely has a little bit of an uphill battle, but I think that it's possible that they can make a jump, but I don't think it's probable.
The thing, I like your point about the social media recruiting, and an athlete that stands out for me is Sammy Watkins, because I remember they would do highlight reels for him. They would really promote him. Penn State kind of did a similar thing with Saquon Barkley. Now, will they continue that this year and really get a push for a Heisman guy? And it doesn't even matter. You just need to have those highlight reel things that you can send out to recruits, point one. Point two, in their favor, they don't have anyone really in-state that to recruit against. Pitt hasn't been pulling the recruits out of the Pittsburgh area, as we mentioned on the show before. They're losing them to outsiders. Michigan, Ohio State are grabbing guys from Pittsburgh, and Penn State's battling them, but it's on their home turf. They can win those. The same battles they're fighting in Maryland and Jersey. Jersey was a big Paterno stronghold, and Michigan swooped in and got Rashawn Gary a couple years ago, the #1 overall recruit from New Jersey. I find it hard to believe that a Paterno coach team wouldn't have pulled him in, because Paterno had New Jersey locked down for how many years? Decades. He built a lot off that little Philadelphia, New Jersey metro area, and that's where Franklin, if he wants to continue, you have to improve there. I did see that he's been jumping into Virginia, another great grab, because who are you up against? The Virginia Cavaliers? You're nowhere near Penn State's level. Virginia Tech, maybe in the late 90s, mid 2000s, they would have been a stronger battle than what they are now. I would think Penn State can win those, and that's where they really need to jump. Win Pittsburgh, win in-state, and then lock off that eastern coast, that eastern quarter, and I think they can have an edge that other teams don't have.
Well, I think one other thing there with Virginia Tech, they have Bud Foster as their defensive coordinator, who's been there for decades, and I think as long as he's there, a lot of those in-state commitments are going to stay at home for the most part. You may get a couple bleed out, but I think he's so solidified there. And I think looking at Clemson as well, we talked about this off air with Brent Venables. I think he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the country, and I think having him consistently stay at home, staying at Clemson, and not pursuing head coaching jobs, because he could definitely be a Power 5 head coach if he chose to, but is choosing to stay at Clemson. I think that has to help Clemson's recruiting.
Well, I would say that's a big deal, and the ending point for this, and we'll move on, is Joe Moorhead. Moorhead was a big part of Franklin's success when he was brought on after the first 2 seasons. Remember, Penn State lost to Brady Hoke, who was on the way out at Michigan. You bring in Moorhead, you bring in an innovative offensive guy. I think they even lost to Maryland a year. I can't remember for sure if they lost that game or it was really close at home. I was at the game. I can't remember now. Drawing a blank. But you can't have games like that whenever other teams are putting an absolute beatdown on schools like that. So you're looking at it. Is this offensive coordinator loss going to be a big deal? And some people might write it off and saying, well, Barkley's gone, Gesicki's gone. Maybe it's personnel. Maybe it's scheme. We'll see. Those are the big question marks. And it could turn the season around from 8 wins all the way up to Big Ten championship and beyond. So we'll see. I don't want to spend more time on that, though. College football's coming up, and we'll be getting into it. We have some of the media days starting. We're going to hit on that next week. We just have a lot of stuff going on this week. So, Matt, you're high tempo.
Big news this week. St. Louis firing head coach Mike Matheny. It was a move that I thought should have happened. I thought the timing of it was definitely perfect, given the now interim coach Mike Schilt. Probably butchered that pronunciation, but he's their bench coach, and it's going to give him time to kind of get his bearings straight as they come off the All-Star break, so that he can get boots on the ground for the second half of the season. Watching St. Louis, they were a sloppy team. A lot of times I felt like their pitchers stayed in the game too long. There were a lot of dumb errors that were committed that in the end it falls on the head man. And so I think they should have been doing better. I thought they could have performed better, but in the end, it led to his firing. So hopefully Birds will turn it around in the second half.
I'm going to go ahead and use that to jump ahead, if you're watching the video, to the Steel City update and start off with the Pirates. I don't think the Pirates would make a move like that. I'm looking at the standings here. Both the Cardinals and the Pirates have 48 wins. Pirates have played 3 more games, probably due to weather, and have, of course, 3 additional losses. So they're 9 games back. Cardinals are 7.5 games back. So virtually identical. Clint Hurdle has made a ton of bonehead mistakes, but the Pirates, they won't make a move like that in the middle of the season. I just don't think, and I think that's the winner's mentality. Now, granted, we were on the show and we did a little straw man poll here, or straw poll with the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Detroit Tigers. Who would have more wins? As soon as we did that, Detroit, 3-7 their last 10 games. I even had a Detroit Tiger shirt I was wearing down at the beach, since they're friends of the show, and they've been playing awful. I picked them, 41 wins right now, 12.5 games back, and they're not turning it around. Now, they did shell Verlander last time he was out. But on the other side, Pirates turning it on right around All-Star break, just like always. They're going to do just enough so that they're not sellers. They might buy. They're never going to buy the guy that gets you competitive. They're sitting at 48 wins, like I said, 9 games back, closer in the wild card. They won 6 in a row going into the break, 8-2 in their last 10. Is it enough to get over the hump? They swept the Brewers. The Brewers series was ridiculous. How they could go ahead and knock them down. Brewers were in first. Now they lost. I think they played a 5-game series. So they lost 5 in a row to the Pirates. Knocked them out of first place. Now they're 2.5 games back on the Cubs. Can the Pirates keep that going and potentially win a wild card? We'll see, but they have to make some moves. The bullpen is atrocious. And we're going to see what happens, what pays off. Matt, what do you think will pay off? The Pirates aren't going to do anything. They'll buy someone low. But who do you think has a better chance? Cardinals with an interim coach or Pirates basically as it stands? What do you think?
Oh, I definitely think the Cardinals are going to improve. They have to improve. I think that they have the talent there. Matheny just wasn't able to get it out of them. And hopefully with the new man who's trying to potentially be the next guy, from what I've been reading, it sounds like he's more of the style of player that GM I always butcher his name too. It's Maleziak, however the hell you say it. Where's Rick when you need him?
I know. He's out watching the All-Star game. Like, he can't do a live convo. He better be bringing those insights and pronunciations next week. I'll say that.
But, you know, I've really been a fan of the moves that he's made. He's willing to make moves if need be. He does things that are going to help the organization. You know, I always feel like if there's an opportunity to make a move to improve the standing or the quality of the team, he does it. And it sounds like with what he's looking for, that the interim coach is going to be more along the lines of what he's looking for. So if it's good enough for him, it gets my stamp of approval as well.
Yeah, we'll see. We're bound to see what's going to happen. Trade deadline will be coming up after this All-Star break. See who's buyers and who's sellers. I don't know. Don't know if the Pirates will be, but that's going to be coming up, and I don't know. Speaking of
Pittsburgh,
go ahead.
In Pittsburgh's defense, though, coming up to the deadline, it just seems like what kind of move could they really realistically make? I mean, I threw the possible scenario to Rick last week with trying to figure out, you know, what do you do? How do you improve the Pirates situation? At this point, there's not a whole lot of pieces that they can't afford to go out. They're not going to spend the money or try to give anything away for like a Machado. It wouldn't make sense. So do you bring in the aging, you know, the old? Maybe they'll trade for Bartolo Colon because they like those really, really old guys that you can kind of hang on their previous year's success.
That will make me go crazy. And just a note, I would say to bring in Manny Machado or make a move or even be in the conversation. You can't tell me that the Los Angeles Dodgers right now are about to make this move. I don't know how out of date that report is, but it looks like the All-Star game's going on right now, so they'll probably wait if they do announce it. But the Dodgers already have a stacked team. You can't tell me that they're not going to be able to make a move like that. And maybe it doesn't work out this year. Maybe it doesn't. You go ahead, you make the move for Machado, and you have a building piece for the future. They don't have that guy. The only guy they've had that might sell tickets in the past was Andrew McCutchen, and they let him go saying, well, he's too old. Well, bring in some young stud then. Get some fans in the seats, and that's how you're going to turn around. You can't tell me and say, oh, you know what? We were a 500 team, and we didn't have enough ticket sales, so we can't afford to buy players. Buy the players, and the fans will come. You know Pittsburgh is like that. They're built on that, built on winning. Fans will come. I don't want to say fair weather fans, but you do know that the city loves a winner. And that's where it goes. You have to start somewhere. You can't sign these Bartolo Colons, or that brings me back shivers from the Jose Mesa deals back in the day.
That's exactly who I was thinking of.
You just sign an old guy that like people might know to come, but they're not selling tickets. Manny Machado would sell tickets, and maybe they don't get him, but there are some other big names that you could trade for. Maybe not that A level, but at least get some B level guys, because right now the Pirates are a swashbuckling team of no-namers. And it's really sad to see. But I will say, moving on, because we have a lot of stuff, the Penguins are, on the other hand, where they're going to be struggling to fit under the cap. Not so much this year, but next year. I was doing research on the show, getting ready, and Gensel's coming up next year, and based on his performance in the playoffs, they're going to have to sign him. And I think that's going to really put them close to going over. And will they pay the tax for him? I think I saw that it would be $100,000. If they didn't pay that, they are crazy, because you got to keep young talent. So as the roster's settling in, Kessel hasn't been moved yet as of my research this morning. But if they don't make any moves, don't be surprised if next year is the year. They might be trying to make one more run with this core group, but I think you're going to see some major changes. I was trying to look and see who else is up. They have right now Brassard, Hagelin. I'm going to butcher this one. Shaheen and Gensel, all coming up. 4 dudes that I would think are gonna push up into higher paid deals if possible, especially Gensel, a young guy coming up performing as he did, not going to fit it. So I'm thinking the Penguins are going to stay pat, pretty close to whatever they have on the roster. That should be shored up soon, but be really worried for next year because it's going to be a whole new team. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that before we move on to the NFL stuff.
No, I think you pretty accurately hit it on the head. I do think that they'll end up moving some players around and they'll be fine. It seems like they always end up making a couple moves and have the flexibility to do so. So I'm not all that worried about that right now.
Well, that's where I think you see Kessel for one more year, and then his salary helps sign some of these younger guys. And I would say that's a good thing. When you're drafting young talent like Gensel, like I can't speak highly enough of this guy. Scoring goals, being around the puck, in the zone, just his awareness had enough to support some of those other lines to give Crosby enough of a breath to do some stuff in the playoffs, and you need that to compete for the Stanley Cup. So the fact that they're able to draft guys like that while winning the Stanley Cup is amazing and just shows how strong the franchise is right now. But on the other hand, going to the Steelers, the big mailbag, and I have the topics sort of out of order. Also, if you're watching the video, my Facebook monitor is blank. Not 100% sure if the video's going through the Facebook or if it's like some new thing where I can't watch the stream at the same time. But if it's black, I'll upload. I have a backup copy always that I upload to YouTube after. I'll re-upload the video. So just a heads up to that to the video guys. But if you're watching, I'm out of order. The big mailbag question this week: will Le'Veon Bell hold out? Matt, I'd like to get your thoughts since I've been talking heavy this episode. Go ahead.
Yes, he's going to hold out. He's going to hold out. Now, the question is, how bad is this going to hurt him? Because he's in a contract year. Well, he's playing on a contract year. He has to sign his contract for right now since they franchise tagged him. And the argument that he's continued to make is that he's an elite offensive weapon and doesn't fit the mold of a running back. With what Pittsburgh was willing to pay him, it was reasonable. It was a great contract. What was it, like $70 million?
I do have it in the stream. Hold on a second. It was $70 million over 5 years. I think they said the first 2 was 30 of that deal. So then it would be about 15. And then after that, it would have been split the extra 40 over 3 years, which would bring it down closer to like 12 million maybe. And that's just me doing the math in my head. But they said the key fact was only that first 30 was guaranteed. So I don't know if that helps your argument or hurts it, but go ahead.
No, but I mean, I think he's been arguing and clamoring for $15-16 million, and he plays up this, it's tough to be a hero in a city that paints you to be a villain. Well, quit being an asshole. Like, just sign the damn contract. I don't know if it's his agent that's giving him bad advice and telling him that he's worth more. But let's be realistic. You've had drug accusations. You've been suspended for drug use. You've had injuries. Your play has been inconsistent because you're constantly holding out and complaining about a contract. I think it really hurts him. And then to furthermore say to do the same thing again, where you're going to hold out and you're going to hold out through camp and maybe even hold out a couple games to keep yourself healthy. What's that doing for the chemistry of the team?
Well, hold on. I have some stats here that help back you up before I go in the opposite direction. So, Le'Veon Bell, this is going to be his 6th season. So he's been in 5 years. The first season. Of course, he comes in as a rookie, and I believe, was he injured that year? So, I'm not really sure. So the first year he played 13 games. Yeah, he was out after the spring, well, it's not spring game, preseason. He had a foot sprain, and it forced him to miss the first 3 weeks. So, of course, shortened season injury. Next year, it was his starting season. This was his big breakout year. He played basically 16 games, career highs, and that's where he really made a name for himself. He broke out, but he hyperextended his knee against the Bengals on December 29th, and he didn't play in the wild card game. So 2015 season rolls around. Coming off injury, you'd think he'd be on his best behavior. Nope. DUI and marijuana possession. He's suspended for the first 4 games. Another shortened season. This season, he only plays 6 games in that season. So you're looking at a guy here, because what happened in that 15 season? Torn MCL. So that's already 3 injuries for him in his first 3 seasons and a drug arrest. Will he turn it around, Matt? Nope. 2016, suspended for the first 3 games because of substance abuse. He wrote his thing on Twitter. He apologized for it. And then what happened? Another season marred by missed games. 12 games he played. And of course, then he gets into the contract stuff. So dude last year wouldn't sign a deal after coming off 3 injuries and 2 suspensions. Didn't even really play a full season because he was always hurt. And he held out. Or did he hold out last year? What happened?
Yes, he held out.
He held out
all of preseason and was back for the first game and played like ass versus Cleveland.
Yep, that's right, because we talked about it, how he seemed out of rhythm out there. So he didn't actually hold out a full game yet, though. Then he played 15 games last year, not near his career high. And this year going into it, what incentive do the Steelers have to offer him more money? because I saw he had defenders out there saying he's worth it. He's worth it. What is he worth? He hasn't played a full season. He holds out, complains about money, gets suspended twice for basically the substance abuse stuff, drugs. I mean, it was a police report. He was with LeGarrette Blount. Look at the opposite side of things. LeGarrette Blount, has he been in trouble since then? No. He went to New England, turned it around, and guess what? He won a Super Bowl last year. So already, you have two contrasting players. LeGarrette Blount, the same dude that was in trouble for punching a guy in the face against Boise State back in college. Arrest, everyone's thinking he's out of the league. Nope. Turns it around, wins the Super Bowl. What has Bell won? That's what I'm waiting for. All the people out there saying Steelers should pay the man, why? Do you want to set the Steelers back? Who in their right mind is going to pay for him more than what the Steelers offered? He wanted $16 to $17 million a year guaranteed in a long-term deal. He's already said he's probably not back to the Steelers next year. His mom grew up a Steelers fan. He was going on all this stuff, saying how he's hurt and they couldn't get it done. They've been in discussions, but they're too far away. It's never going to happen. Some dumb franchise will sign him. And
Miami will probably sign him. Well, I joked that Dan Snyder in Washington will sign him.
And kill their team. Because you can't have a running back taking that much salary every year. Why would the Steelers pay a guy? Why would they give him 5 years of guaranteed money when the dude couldn't even play 5 years of ball without getting in trouble? Throw aside the injury thing, because that hurts some players. I understand some players are more prone. Whatever. You can't predict that, and you really can't blame that on the player unless they're like hurting themselves in weird training accidents or like a boat wreck. Other than that, you can't blame them for that. But the drug arrest twice? Come on, bro. Suspended twice or whatever happened to him? There's no way. If they paid for them, it would have been a loss of respect for the Steelers organization as a whole. And I think you saw other players come out in support of the Steelers negotiation. Former players. I haven't seen any current players because they're probably not going to get involved. But you're looking at an organization that prides itself on championships, integrity. People gave them shit for signing Ben Roethlisberger after his allegations or whatever happened with him. He wrecked his motorcycle. Remember how dumb he was when he first came into the league? Turned it around. And that's where Le'Veon Bell is going to come. So, Matt, to your point, circling back around, I don't think he holds out because he can't afford it. If he holds out, no team will sign him what he wants. That contract is going down every year. Is he going to play every game this year, or is he going to be injured? Because all another team has to do is say, hey, when have you played a full season? What is his answer going to be? Why would I pay you a guaranteed $16, $17 million if you don't play a whole season? He's not the best player in the league. He's not the best player on the team. Antonio Brown is. That's very clear. That is very clear. And you can come at me on that statement. I'll
come at you on that.
Antonio Brown's the best player.
The straw that stirs the drink in that team is number 7, Holmes.
Well, Ben Roethlisberger. But I'm saying
Mike Wallace was there. He did the exact same. He filled the exact same role Antonio Brown did. Run deep.
Yeah, but he has much more production than what Mike Wallace has. He almost has Jerry Rice numbers if he can get in the end zone a few more times. But I think that's just Ben spreading the ball around. I think if they were more one-dimensional, and I'm looking at the future. Who would you rather have long-term? Bell, ? Or Brown? Because Ben Roethlisberger's set. So I'm kind of throwing him out. Yeah, long-term overall career right now, Roethlisberger is the best. He's the best Steeler of this generation. You can go back to maybe the former one, I'd say former, with Paulo Malu and Jerome Bettis, and throw Hines Ward and a couple other guys in there. But right now it's Ben, and he has the position to transcend to that next generation of Steeler guys, where will Brown be the next Hines Ward? Will he be here for a long time, helping usher in a new quarterback? Will Bell be the Jerome Bettis for that next quarterback, whether it's Mason Rudolph or whoever? I don't think they are, because they're not guys that are going to help build him up. Would you want Bell breaking in your quarterback, Matt?
To answer that bluntly, no, I wouldn't. But I'm going to contradict myself and say, if he comes out knowing that he's in a contract year and puts up the numbers that everyone knows he's capable of, if he puts the numbers up, someone's going to spend the money on him because it's a what have you done for me lately league. So even if he holds out through all of preseason and do exactly what he did last year, he'd say, I was keeping myself healthy. I was prepared for week 1. And if he can show that he can play all 16 games plus the playoff load and he's healthy and he puts up numbers, record-setting numbers, someone's going to spend the money on him. It won't be Pittsburgh. And I'll give a tip of the cap to Ben Roethlisberger. You said about class people. It's been talked about how he's kind of a selfish person and a kind of an ass outside of football. But you look at what he's doing for the team and taking contract. Has his contract restructured to help sign free agents and players to make the team better. He's doing things even after he signed his $100 million contract. Restructured it 2 or 3 times to get players signed so that they're under the cap. He's doing things to help them out. You don't see Bell, he signed his contract. It was good enough for him to sign when he first got into the league, but all of a sudden, now he has to try to make things out to be bigger. Just play under your contract. If he signs it and does what he needs to do, then I don't have an issue with it. But it's just, am I going to hold out? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? I think he's going to at least hold out a little bit to try to make a statement, but it's not going to be enough that it's going to affect his numbers or hurt his money.
I'll say this as a closing statement. I think that this is what hurts the NFL. They don't help players market themselves, and I would like to see the Steelers step up and kind of do that and say, look, Bell, we can't give you this guaranteed money because you haven't played a full season, but we'll give you an extra incentive. Let's say you go ahead and we can help you get some marketing revenue for yourself. We'll help you put together some, it doesn't have to be a foundation, but like Le'Veon Bell, I saw that he was working with some youth. Help him get a way to help monetize that. Steelers can step in and help guide these guys. You see with the NBA, we talked about AAU a couple weeks ago with the shoe deals. NFL doesn't really have any of these young guys that are the face of the league. Look who they try to shove. We were at the beach last week, and who were they still trying to shove in our face? Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers sucks. I would not want him to be my starting quarterback. And I'm just going to flat out and say it. Yeah, he won a Super Bowl years ago. What has he done? What is Aaron Rodgers doing? The NFL is just trying to market him because they know Tom Brady is going to be out of the league soon. So they need a guy they can point to that says, look, he won a Super Bowl. They know Ben Roethlisberger's past that point. They need some young guys. Steelers need to step up and say, hey, look, we got a guy here. We can help you market yourself. Maybe we can hook up a side deal with Nike. Now, the reason I bring this up is because it's still tied to performance. If he gets hurt, he can still get the marketing money. If he gets suspended, not so much. So it's kind of a help in the Steelers thing where, hey, we're going to help you get this extra money, but if you get suspended or you keep doing this holdout drama, they're going to drop you so fast. You're done. And it will help him clean up. And I think it would really help some other organizations, not so much as Steelers. Could you imagine if the Bengals did that with some of their players that are often in trouble? If they're like, hey, we're going to help you get some marketing deals from Cincinnati's top Ford dealership or some random place that will pay top dollar athletes to come hang out at some extravaganza sale where you have a sale and they come out and they get to meet the ball player. Tons of local teams would do it. That's the rumors how college kids get paid. Go to a car wash. There's a college kid signing autographs. They could do that with NFL guys. So these NFL teams, I would like to see them step up. NBA does it. NBA definitely does it. That's why you see so many young guys getting their names out there, getting these shoe deals. NFL could be the same exact way. Doesn't have to be shoes. Could be hats. Could be shirts. Whatever they need to do. Step up. Steelers, be a leader. Don't fall behind and let some other team start to do it first, because it's a number one. It's a way around the salary cap. Maybe there's rules against it. Maybe I don't know all the rules. I know the NFL Players Association is going to have some words about it. And we're going to talk about the NCAA thing later on in the show. But that's what I would like to see, just a little speculation to end it. Do you have any other thoughts before we do? We'll do some rapid fire on some other topics here to end the show. You have anything else, Matt?
Nope, we're good. No, I'm good.
All right. Going to go with another hot topic. Jumping in before the All-Star game. France wins the World Cup. And I watched the game. It was a great game. I honestly thought Croatia was better. Definitely in the first half, Croatia was the better team. And my thoughts were, for a country of only 4 million people, they should not be this good at soccer. They should not be better than the United States. And I'll never get that mindset out of my head. You can tell me it's because AAU, or what is it, AYSO for soccer, is pay for play. Oh, if you can pay to be on the high travel teams, you can get a college scholarship. It beats talent. I mean, it doesn't really do that for football or basketball. These guys still get found. So I don't know if it's more talent, scouting, if bigger colleges getting in to the mix. Like, I don't think Michigan had a soccer team. Like, I think that started pretty recently, within the past decade or so. They finally got a soccer team. So maybe it's by having the bigger land grant universities start to put a premium on it. That will help recruit regionally, which would help the talent pool. I don't know. Do all colleges have soccer teams? Again, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to do. But Croatia, I saw the handball. It kind of hurt them. It definitely hurt their momentum. I think it should have been a tie game at the end of regulation if they didn't have that. France got a couple goals, but it looked like Croatia was beat down after France had the lead at halftime. France wins. Awesome. Good for them. They're kind of on top on soccer for right now. But I will say there was some disturbing news, Matt. And I know I sent this to you. Not about the teams, not about the teams that played. But who's in charge? FIFA?
Yes.
FIFA banned television networks from showing sexy fans. And it sounds very, very sexist, Matt. Because are they not going to show me any beefcakes? Because they definitely would show beefcakes if they had them in the stands. Could you imagine if they didn't show Ronaldo? They're like, nah, too handsome. Guys can't show him too often. But no. What did they do? They said, I see there's too many babes on this show. So we definitely can't show that. So definitely cut them out. And I think the big one, so if you're not a fan of World Cup, you're missing out here. There's a girl from Peru. I don't know her name. But every time they scored a goal, she would take her bra off. And these are the kind of things that FIFA was trying to distance himself to. And I saw like about 30 articles about which country had the hottest babes at the World Cup. And then I was watching the last couple games and I realized, oh my God, they're not showing any of the girls. Like, where are these girls they showed in the group stages? They didn't show it in the knockout round. And then I found the memo. FIFA sent out a memo saying that they can't show hot babes or they would pull their rights to stream the game. So Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
It's just the political correctness. It's someone that thinks that they're perceiving something one way or another and making a bigger issue out of it than it needed to be. They weren't showing anything inappropriate. I don't see an issue with it.
Well, Matt, hold on. My question is, this is my follow-up question. Who decides who's hot?
I was thinking, as you were leading in with it, that was also one of the things that I was thinking about, is who's making this determination of this girl is too hot. We need to get some ugly women on here.
Because there was girls from every country, guys from every country. Did they have a representative from each country that was there? Like, okay, you're the France rep. Which French girls are hot? And he pointed them out, and he's like, yeah, her. Definitely don't show them. Or was it just one guy judging all the countries? Because what if he didn't have taste for certain ones? I mean, everyone has their favorites. Some guys like blonde, some guys like brunettes, some guys like a little tan. But who was making these decisions? Was it a committee? Because I would like to sit in on those meetings. So I think FIFA should release the tapes and let us see, how are they judging who's sexy and who's not. And did it include beefcakes? Because that's a thing. Guys ripping their shirts off in the stands, six packs flying. Why not show me that? I mean, Matt, what do you think?
I just think I want to be the person who has to come up with that kind of rule. Like, how do you have that much free time to think, oh, we're showing too many of whatever? Who cares? Like I don't think that it does anything to hurt people watching the World Cup. If for anything, you would think that something like that may cause viewers to tune in as opposed to tuning out.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because I know they don't have this, but what if they all had a boardroom that just showed the TVs and then it had like a little ticker that showed the ratings and how many people tuned it off? They showed a hot chick and it just was like dropping, and they're like, oh my God, quit showing them. Our ratings are dropping. People are turning their TVs off, which did not happen. So how did they decide? Like, oh man, yeah, that was way too many. It just doesn't make sense. It makes me think that the guy in charge that made this call was either a pervert or, dare I say, a jealous woman? Dare I say it, Matt? I don't know what the thought process is.
I can see it. Here's what I think it probably ended up being. It was a couple people that are high enough up in the system that can raise a ruckus, took up an issue with it, and had enough clout that they could make it an issue to a point that they had to address it at FIFA. Because I would think on a day-to-day basis, that's not something that you're normally thinking about with, panning through the audience. I'm sure the focus was more on the game. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm naive in it. But I would think that if you're just panning across like the front couple rows, you're going to get a feel for people to zoom in on.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm completely baffled. I had to bring it up. I put it on here. And if you're listening to the show and let me know. But I'm going to dig in. Maybe I'll try to get a hold of someone at FIFA to find out what their thought process was and who was in charge, because I would like to sit in on those meetings. I don't know. I don't see how it hurts. Like, you're discriminating against certain people. They try to do it with, what was that? We brought that in. Was it what's the Indy car? Wow, what the hell is that even called? Those race cars, they had the pit girls, remember? They got rid of them.
Yeah.
They got rid of them. Ratings must have tanked because they brought them back. I'm pretty sure they brought them back. I don't know if we mentioned that on the show. I'll have to do some research, but pretty sure they brought them back. So we'll see. Let's move on. We'll hit some other topics.
Good. I can start watching racing again.
Yeah, you can just, they should just have a camera. Why not do it separate? That's a good point, Matt. Have a separate camera. You know how ESPN does like the coach's booth? Why not have like the, what were they called? The pit babes or whatever, like the fan section. Because I mean, isn't the France president a beefcake? What, they didn't show him either? Like sorry, you can't be on. I'm pretty sure that's him. Remember he married that old lady? I think that's what happened. So, I don't know, getting off track. Get to the MLB All-Star game. And we talked baseball earlier in the show, but you can't tell me.
American League's up.
Yeah, you can't tell me they're not juicing the balls, Matt. It's 2-1 right now. That's what I have. I might be a little bit behind because I do all the streaming stuff first, so my game could be delayed. 3 home runs. But they're not juicing the balls. And does anyone even care? Bryce Harper wins the home run derby. I loved his display of American pride during that. Made me pumped up, and I was glad he won. I think he had an American bandana on. Had American flag, basically everything. Didn't wear a hat. Came out with his hair flowing. Hit a bunch of home runs. Did you see any other guys doing that? Nope. So he deserved to win. And for the rest of this game, does it matter? Just give the guys a week off. Give them a week off. Do like some other thing. Maybe the ratings are still so high. I don't know. We'll look at it next week as we come in. Rick's watching it, so he'll have his thoughts when he gets back next week. But, man, I'm just not interested. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, if it weren't for the show, I don't know that I would tune in for it. I've kind of lost it's lost a lot of the zeal. I think because a lot of these professional sports are becoming so individual-based and performance-based that you're not really seeing a good game. You're not seeing the best of the best and them really slugging it out. It's kind of like across the board, across all sports. I see it as like a half-hearted effort where no one's really trying. It's like you don't want to show each other up, but it's another way for the league to make money, and so they go through the motions so that they sell tickets. And it's sad that it falls on that because it could be something special.
And we talked about it last week. Too many starting pitchers. Why have 8 starting pitchers or whatever it is pitch 1 inning and have their manager worried about them getting hurt? Have one guy, pick the best guy, and have them go. Who's in it for the Cy Young? Let those 2 be the guys that pitch. And then you fill it up with all relievers. That's my new stance. Because they're used to pitching 1 inning most times. Closers and setup men. Could you imagine if you had a team full of closing pitchers, like the best of the best, that need to pitching live game action because they're used to pitching it, then they'll get out of rhythm. So their managers won't be complaining about them pitching. Have a guy, have your 2 best pitchers, and then guess what? You're going to see a better ball game because the starting pitchers aren't used to pitching. So now what's it turning into? A home run derby? I mean, I don't know. That's my thoughts on it. Let's move on. We talked about enough about baseball today. I had on here, I want to talk about Josh Rosen, former UCLA quarterback, now in the NFL, came up with 2 lawyers, an NCAA pay scheme, is what I wrote it as, to get players paid. Unlike other things where idiot journalists are just writing, oh, just pay everyone $5,000. It'll all work out. Rowing. What other sports did we say? Trampoline. What Michigan has a trampoline or whatever national championship. We talked about it. Beach volleyball for Florida State. Like, you're playing these sports. They're not all going to be earning that. But his plan, and I'm going to simplify it here because it was a white paper. You can look it up. It was quite long. I skimmed through it and I read some highlights, some spark notes, if you remember those, or cliff notes, whatever they're called. He wants to pay players only if they graduate. So this cuts out a lot of the one and done bullshit that the NBA does because those players don't graduate. I don't remember if there was a term limit. It also helps out players that are 5th-year transfers or 5th-year like graduate guys that are told to take a walk. They transfer teams and then they go wherever. So it helps them out because they'll still get paid at the end of their 4 years. And it also takes into account your performance. So if you're in a sport like football where you get paid to be in a video game, you get that extra money added to your account. So I think there was a base pay that everyone makes, or like some base thing, and then you get your performance stuff. I don't know so much about like autograph sessions. If you hold one for, like, let's say Michigan has the M-Den where they have their athletes come in. That's like their merchandise store that's run by Michigan. Let's say they have an event where they have players come in and autographs. They take some money for it or something. Could they then add that to their graduation account? I don't know. But it's basically forcing players, and this is where I think you should do it in 4 years to keep it even. Don't give dudes that jump to the NBA after 1 year a chance to take money. If they don't take their money, it goes into a player pool. And that extra money, so like, let's say, this is how I understand it anyway. Let's say Jadeveon Clowney, I brought him up early in the show. I think he jumped early to the NFL, didn't graduate. He had all the money that he earned from endorsements at South Carolina then would go into the South Carolina player pool and would then be dispersed to help pay off sports where you don't get those endorsements. So he kind of gives up the rights to his money by going pro early, kind of as an out for his contract. Because I think all scholarships are like, 4-year deals or whatever. Maybe they're renewable. I can't remember how it is. But that's the gist of it. Players have a way to earn extra money. They don't get the money until they graduate. They'll get like a base stipend or whatever they get now. Because some players do get paid now. I mean, we've talked about it. You get paid. You get paid meal stipends and all kind of other stuff as an athlete. The NCAA just cranks it down. So it depends on if you miss meals because of travel and stuff like that. So they would still get that money to survive. When they graduate, kind of as a graduation gift, they could have a ceremony and do it. And like I said, some bigger schools then could offer autograph days. What do they do now? Car days. You go to car dealership and you get that free car, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how they would regulate it, but I like this plan, and I'd like to get your thoughts on it, Matt.
When I first read it, and I did go through it, my initial gut reaction was to say no. Because when you're looking at schools like Michigan, like Ohio State, like USC, and you're looking at these average students that are getting paid they're having to pay back 6 figures worth of student loans and all the extra debt that they're accruing for participating in sports, and you're getting your meals, you're getting your room and board, you're getting your education calmed. I mean, that's a pretty good deal for playing a sport. But the closer that I looked at the Rosen deal, and I kind of had some time to stew on it, one of the things that I think would be a major issue with it is looking at the graduation rates. And I know historically black students have had a tougher time getting through school, and they have all these extra programs trying to incentivize getting those students through higher education. I can remember during my undergrad we had a senior level class, and in one of the synthesis questions the student pointed out, this is a senior level class and we don't have any diversity in the room. So I mean, I do think that if you're going to reward people going all 4 years, how balanced and how fair is that? Or is that just going to go to an exclusive group of a certain group of people, if that makes sense?
Well, I wonder if it would incentivize them to at least stick with it. Because you see the athletes that drop off. They're the high recruits coming in. They don't make it for whatever reason. And then the rumors start that they're going to transfer. And then what's that one? Is it a Netflix show, Last Chance U or whatever? Where then they transfer to some other lower schools to try to get their grades right. Look what happened with Cam Newton. He played JUCO for a year, I believe, after Florida. Most people don't remember.
Down in Blinn, Texas.
Most people don't remember that he was on that national championship team with Tebow. And he had to transfer because of some issues and stuff. Now, not everyone has Cam Newton talent. So it gives them a way to say, you know what? If I stick with it and graduate, I'll get it. Will there be some coaches that cut players and do shady things like that? Yeah, but I think in the world of social media, that will be negated. Like, I don't think you'll see that too much.
Look at what Alabama's doing. Alabama does it all the time, where they're taking players and they're pushing them off onto the graduate. They're pushing them to these junior colleges, and they're doing all this stuff. There's all kinds of stories out there. If you look them up about gray shirting, with like the medical issues with kids and trying to manipulate the scholarships. So, there's stuff with like that's happening all the time. I wouldn't mind if they went that route, that let's say you hypothetically jump, because you're good enough that you jump to the NBA. The expectancy, the longevity of your career isn't that long. I wouldn't mind it that if you play a couple years in the league and then you decide, I'm getting cut, I'm not panning out, it's not going the way that I want it to be, I would still like for them to be able to go back, get their degree, and still earn that money, because I think that that's important. Would
they hold the endorsement deals then? Because I think that's where you get into the gray area, where you have a guy, let's go big, Maurice Clarett. Okay, he would have made a shit ton of money at Ohio State. Let's be clear on that. Remember, he jumped early, didn't even make it to the NFL.
Absolutely.
They voted him down. So he comes back and earns his degree later. Do you think he should earn that big time money, or should that go back to the university?
Absolutely. Because how much money did the university make when they beat Miami? Don't tell me that they didn't make money hand over fist during that year and a half that he was there. So I think for as much money and for as much recognition as he brought the program, I think that he earned his slice of the pie. And that's where I think that it helps those players, because if you make a mistake, like that was clearly a life choice mistake, that he missed out on his NFL opportunity, he missed out on all that, that would be where he's known as the Ohio State running back. Let him get his cut of what he helped put on the map.
I think that's a good way to look at it. And I think it just all depends, because a lot of people don't realize when you said earlier about them getting paid to be athletes and doing, they're getting their schooling paid for. When I played baseball and stuff at the lower levels, you were able to work. I don't think D1 athletes, and we'll have to get Jeff to call in or whatever to discuss how he played at Pitt, but I don't think you're able to hold jobs like I was. So I was able to, I put together a music club, put together a band, and I was making a couple extra grand a semester playing live music. I don't think athletes are able to do that on the side when they're at the D1 level because the NCAA restricts it so much. So I say, let them earn it. Let them do what I did at the D3 level. Why the hell not? I was still getting paid. If they're paying me at the D3 level, D1 athletes are still getting paid for meal stipends and all kind of other stuff. So they're having money for that. That's my biggest thing, was that Shabazz Napier or whatever, who complained that he couldn't eat. He was just skipping the mandatory meal days then. Because I know how the NCAA guy, we had a guy that traveled with us. Someone from the NCAA would come and they would inspect and make sure everyone had their meals, and I had to sign a little paper sometimes whenever we would do an audit. So you can't tell me that the D1 schools didn't have that, because they 100% did. So you have the opportunity. I had opportunity to make extra money. I took advantage. Let these guys get their money. Let them come back at any time, because it's good for the university. Who was it a few years ago that went back and tried to graduate after an NFL career, or maybe it was NBA career? And there was like a TV show on it. I can't remember what it was now. It was like one of those real TVs on like TWC, or I don't even watch TV, so I don't even know what these networks are. But if they're going to be able to monetize that, then let the guys earn their money. And I would think a lot of the successful ones would just donate it back anyway. Because look at like someone like Charles Woodson came back to Michigan last year after he retired and did the honorary captain thing. You'd really think he's gonna be like, yeah, where's that 10 grand I earned when I was here? Like I would just think that it would make so much more sense for some athletes whenever they reach that certain height that they would just donate it anyway, because they already make donations to the university. Like, could you see some of these other big stars in the NBA that go back and they're like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to come back and collect that 8 grand or whatever it ends up being, because we don't know. I don't know how much EA's contract was worth with these schools, and you can still opt out. Remember, Barry Bonds opted out. That's why he wasn't in any video games, like from the 90s or whatever through. He was always just a regular guy. I think the one game was at the show. He was like Jay Dowd or something like that, because they just made a guy up and it couldn't look like him. So they made him a white right-handed guy. Same stats as Barry Bond, awesome power or whatever. But it really messed up that Giants lineup because they didn't have the left-handed power hitter, because Bond said no, so they had to reverse it and throw in some other guy that messed up that whole team. So any college player could say, you know what? No, I'm not going to sign that, and I'm going to take the traditional deal. I don't know. It's a good conversation starter, and
I think the only knock that I would have is with you saying about your music club. If you took your college and put it on steroids at the level that a lot of these like crazy, like I'm thinking of like the Pony Express SMU, that have boosters and alumni that have too much money on their hands, where I see the part-time job and getting money paid on the side is where, oh, I'm playing a show and now this booster is going to either tip me or pay, way above what a normal rate would be. So now you're getting thousands of dollars for a part-time job, per week.
Well, I think that's where, it was my understanding that all of the payment things would have to be cleared by the NCAA. I've mentioned it before, how Harbaugh has that one guy from the NCAA that follows him around.
Well, right.
To France or wherever. Each school would have a guy.
If they did it that way, and all of that money was just a communal funneled into a general scholarship pool, that then you graduate and here's your percentage, that may be the extra incentive for some people to finish school, and I would be okay with that.
And I think that's where it would go, and I think that would help the gray shirt issue. Remember there was that punter from UCF last year or the year before that
yes.
had a YouTube show. in the future now, he can just say, okay, NCAA and UCF, you guys set up my account. I'm still going to do my podcast or YouTube show, whatever it was. And then the money goes to them. They check it, and whatever percentage goes to him, whatever percentage goes to the communal fund. And that's how I assume it would work. Now, would it be a perfect system? No. Would he get 100% of that revenue from his show? I would hope so. Because why would he split any of that with whoever? Or like, let's say another guy like me plays guitar, and he's like, I'm going to do a couple acoustic shows, $250 a pop is what I was doing them at. You do what? One every weekend. That's $1,000 a month. Could you imagine if like an athlete did that with his name? He did shows. You would just have to have it go through the university, I think. And I think that's where, as a recruiting tool, you could point out and be like, hey, look at all these dudes that signed with Alabama and aren't getting their money and aren't getting to the NFL. Are you sure you want to risk that? And I think you would see more dispersed talent, because now you can go to a smaller school, someone that might not be performing at that top level. Let's say someone that has a great degree like Georgia Tech, or someone that doesn't recruit at the high level, but they can point at their rival Georgia and say, are you sure you're going to be able to get your money? And are you sure you're going to be able to get to the NFL? Because look, we have guys in the NFL, Calvin Johnson, not anymore. But I mean, what's the difference? Are degrees worth more? According to U.S. News and Report. That's off the top of my head, so maybe it's not. But I would think it is as a tech school. But that's what you're going to have to look at. So we'll see. I hope it opens the NCAA discussion board and they get some more facts. But I do like the system of the base pay and then get what you're worth. Because there are some girls, like for softball, since Florida State won this year, I know Michigan had a couple that were on the U.S. national team or whatever the softball thing is. I don't know if it was tied to the Olympics or whatever, but you can't tell me that they weren't getting additional money that they had to forfeit due to that. What about the guys that perform in the Olympics? I'm pretty sure NC State down here had a couple swimmers in the Olympics. What happens to their endorsement deals? Do they get to keep them? I don't know. So let's make it an even playing field. Get everyone in. If you can make money, make it. And then just get it if you get it when you graduate or whatever, or maybe the Olympics have something different just because it's a national sport where maybe you don't have to graduate to get it. I don't know. But we'll see. You have any other final thoughts on that before we hit the final bell?
Nope.
All right. Mine, speaking of the Olympic stuff. U.S. diving scandal. I put it on the board so I didn't forget to mention it. It's come out. This is the third Big Ten university that's been named in one of these sexual allegations. You had Penn State with Jerry Sandusky, who, if you search Penn State on Google, I noticed today that their most notable alumni is Jerry Sandusky for Penn State. So bad look all around. Then you had Michigan State with the Larry Nasser, I think that's how you say his last name, the women's gymnastic coach for the U.S. Gymnastics. They had him be their trainer at Michigan State, had some complaints against him, and they ignored it. And now a bunch of girls came and testified, and we hit that up on the show. So look back at our old episodes if you want to hear that. Now it comes out. 2 big hits. U.S. diving is what I put it at, but it also hits the Ohio State programs. Because 2 weeks ago, I would say, it came out. I didn't bring it up on the show because it was hearsay at the point. But there was a wrestler that came out and said that an old wrestling coach was basically molesting players, similar to what you saw at the other universities. He said Ohio State wrote it under the butt, like wrote it away, threw it away, whatever. He came back. Ohio State came back and said he was trying to hurt a brand, is what they used, which was really weird phrase when I read it, because it made me think like, yeah, this guy's sour grapes, whatever. The coach is dead. I think that coach died in like 2005 or something. So you're like soiling a name. A guy can't defend himself. Who knows? You've waited how many years to come out? I don't know. Ohio State kind of threw shade at him. He said, it wasn't just us. Wait, he said, you're going to get your brand hurt by more than just me. I'm hoping that I open the floodgates or whatever he said. That's a paraphrase. And now, looking like he might be right, which is the reason I wanted to bring that up. Can't remember the guy's name, but if you look it up, a lot of articles came out this week tying the two together, mentioning the wrestling allegations, because there was a coach on the U.S. diving team that was a club coach at Ohio State, not even their main swimming and diving. I don't know if they have a swimming and diving program, but he was their diving club coach who was taking underage girls at Ohio State back to his room or their apartment. And one of the rumor is, and I don't know if it's true or not, but the rumor is one of the girls was rooming with another girl, one of the alleged victims. She saw a weird message on the phone, and it included at least four weird nude photos that she had sent to the coach. Like the coach had told her that she had to send these photos to him, or she was going to be kicked off the qualifying list for the U.S. diving team. And this is coming from the article. So it wasn't the girl, it wasn't the victim, it was her roommate that made this statement. She said that the University of Ohio State has those four photos and has had them for decades. She said she turned them in, and supposedly she has proof that happened, which as a bombshell. I don't know. Michigan State, like theirs was hearsay. A lot of Penn State supporters said that the Jerry Sandusky stuff that he told, or McQuarrie told Paterno, was hearsay. This could be the first case that they actually have proof that someone received the abuse. An underage girl, they said she was under 17 at the time, or 17 or under at the time. An underage girl that she has proof. Could be a major bombshell, but we'll see. I hate to end the show like this. But I wanted to make sure that I put it on. That's my final topic for the week. Definitely some weird, really weird things. And as a dad, I don't know if I'd want my kids to try out for any of the United States Olympic teams. How can we compete at World Cup when we have all kind of weird coaches that aren't getting screened out of almost every sport now? Swimming, diving, gymnastics. It's all over. It's sad. I mean, I don't know. That's the report that came out. That's what the victim said. There's multiple photos that she turned in to Ohio State. They didn't do anything about it. And she's also implicating that the U.S. diving team knew as well. I don't know if she told them or what, but that's it. Matt, you have anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I can help solve this problem. They can just hire me, and I'll be the one to protect these sports. Because, look, for example, tonight, I was at gymnastics class. And you know what? I almost beat up a little kid because he jumped a little bit too close to my daughter. I am perfectly okay with being the watchdog to make sure that none of the shady stuff is going on. They can come right out and practice. They can go in and leave. And I'll stand at the door. They can get changed and get out. Problem solved. It's happening at Ohio State. It's happening at Michigan State. It's happening at Penn State. It's a Big Ten issue. Where's the Big Ten higher ups that are policing the ranks? Like, how many more scandals has to come out of the Big Ten before they get their shit together and quit molesting people? Like, it's a sad topic, but like we want to talk about accountability. Look at it as a conference. Look at it as, getting people on the same page and vetting it. One time, okay, it happens. There's oversight. You don't tell me that every university doesn't have some screening protocol now to make sure that this, quote, doesn't happen again. Look at Michigan State backpedaling. You're going to see Ohio State backpedal. Say, oh, well, we don't know what happened. Bullshit. Get it done. Protect these people. Well, that's the name of the game.
The rumors were when the Penn State thing happened, they had said, and their board was very adamant, that this doesn't only affect us, and other Big Ten universities are going to find out. And I wonder how many are involved, and if they all are, and if it's not just the Big Ten and it just starts a wildfire and they start coming up every year until every university's hit. I don't know. Will you see other schools separate? That was the rumor with the Penn State thing. Let's kick Penn State out. And then did they have a vote? I mean, what's going to happen now? Will other schools leave? Let's say Northwestern. Let's say they come out and Northwestern isn't hit. Will they try to jump to another conference to distance themselves? I don't know. Will any school do that? I brought up the thing while you were talking. The Ohio State wrestling one is Richard Strauss, he committed suicide in 2005 after allegations came out, and they stretch back to 1970 or whenever he committed suicide. That's a bad look. I mean, any way you put it. I don't know about that one. The quote was, "The Ohio State University has no interest in hurting their brand," is what someone had said whenever they first brought this up. And then I don't know how to pronounce the coach's name. Bahania, whatever. That's the U.S. diving one. It's a class action lawsuit against Ohio State and the U.S. diving team. And that was the thing. 2 former divers. One of them, I don't know if they were the roommates from the story, but that's the story one of them was telling, is that she saw the stuff on the phone and had them turn it in to Ohio State. And basically that's what they alleged in their thing. So we'll see. I don't know. And I will say, Matt, I think some of it, I don't know. You brought up about parents watching kids. When we were at the beach, we went to this, it was like a bar place that had a playground. And there were parents that were just letting their kids run around crazy. And the parents were just at the bar drinking. So it's like, that's what I imagine these coaches are doing. Not paying attention. You let some creepy guy come into the program. He's like, "Hey, I'd like to volunteer, or I'll be a coach." The other guy's like, yeah, I'm busy. Go ahead. Do your thing. And no one even knows. But, I mean, once you get the report, though, you would have to think they would do something. So, that's all I have. Matt, what's your final bill this week?
I'm liking in Pennsylvania right now the fact that there's a really strong push for the public schools to separate themselves from the private schools when it comes to school playoffs.
I'm surprised you didn't lead with this. You've been talking about this for a decade.
I know I have been, but this is the first time that schools are being asked to speak with representatives at the state level. And you see, when you look realistically at school playoffs, there's 5 to 7% of these private schools, these non-boundary schools that can pull from anywhere, that are dominating basketball, both boys and girls basketball and football, that it's an unfair advantage to the public schools that I think that it's worth they're now having the conversations. It's not just public school coach to coach talk where it's, well, this sucks that we can't recruit from wherever we want. It's now being brought up to the legislator, and it's not a system it's not something that has never been done. You look at states like Florida, like Georgia, that are able to separate their public schools from their private schools so that they have those separate playoffs, and I think it's a good thing.
Well, I'll say this as a point in your favor. What's the guy's name? Is it Biff Poggi? He was a volunteer for the football team at University of Michigan. He was a high school football coach. His son committed, played at Michigan. I think he was a fullback, Henry Poggi. And he went back to high school after his son graduated. He was like a volunteer and analyst or whatever. He came on board with his high school experience, went back to Maryland. I don't know if I mentioned this on the show or not. Other schools now are refusing to play them because he has been paying players to transfer to his private school, basically helping them pay their tuition.
You didn't, and I read that article. That was a really, really good article.
Yeah, I knew. I just basically knew that it came up because of his ties to Michigan and Michigan recruiting down there through him using guys like that. And basically a head coach gets a rapport with a coach in high school, and that's how they get some of their pipelines. You get recruits from the same school that are comfortable, like, hey, go play for this guy. Michigan had that with Biff Poggi, and he basically had one of those prep schools where he was paying tuition of players from less fortunate families to go to some private school, and they were just destroying teams so much now that they're going to have to, I don't know if it's been resolved, but they're going to have to become a national high school team like IMG Academy or whoever, where you just play against the top schools in the country. Positive, that helps Michigan's recruiting, because Now he's gonna fill that void with the school from Maryland. All those guys, remember, that used to go to Penn State. Now they're probably going to transfer to play here because he can pull from wherever. I don't think there's a limit whenever you're going to private high school. But I don't know. It's a big problem. And until they separate more, would you have a private league? Like, what would you do if you had your choice? What do you think they should do?
This was a resolution that I thought would be fair. Take the school and then look at the students that are attending that school. So hypothetically, if you're declaring yourself as the smallest classification, but you're able to recruit from an area where you have maybe 2 or 3 inner city schools around you that are the highest classification, and you can pull kids from that area, you have that higher pool. I think you play at the classification of the kids that you're pulling in. And I think that would make it fair. So, for example, if you're a school that is a low, maybe your graduating class is 50 kids, but you're pulling kids from 3 schools around you that have a class size of 300 students per grade. Well, you're taking the average of those 3 schools now, and that's going to be the class level that you're going to play at, because you're having that much of an area where you can reach people. I think that makes it fair. You're not taking away, like, for a school that graduates 50 kids, like the district I'm in is a small district. So we only have the kids that are in our boundary. We can't reach out to schools in the neighboring areas and say, hey, come on in. It doesn't work that way. We don't have that luxury. So I think for those schools that they can provide tuition assistance to a student. And to kind of go back to your story, they said one of the issues that they had with the tuition assistance was all the kids that were getting tuition assistance were 6'5", 330 pounds. and I think that maybe that evens the playing field a little bit, because with a team that we deal with in our area, they were, for the last couple of years, they've been averaging 300 pounds across the line. That no team in single A does that. You're lucky to have one, let alone 5 or 6.
Well, I think that's a good way to end it, and I do like your idea. I never even thought of that. So just to reiterate, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, you're saying that take a look at their entire class. Let's say they have 50 kids, and they pulled from 5 different schools, districts, like the public school area, because the private schools never have their own area. So you're going to pull from those 5. So you're going to take the average class size of them. So, like, let's say if the average is 200 or whatever, that'd put them at AA instead of single A, if I understand correct, right?
Something along those lines. Or even to say, if you're pulling from a 4A school, then your playoffs you're going to count as 4A, since you're pulling from that district.
That's a good idea. I think you might have to weight it, because if you pull one kid from a 4A, you know that they would kind of. And are you only counting the football players, or would you count? I guess you'd count by sport. So if you pulled football players,
yeah, you'd go by sport, because there are certain schools that they'll play single A for one sport, but then double for another.
Yeah, so someone would just have to, whenever they submit their final roster, look and see how many guys they have, because I could see them game the system by only recruiting from like a AA, like 10 AA schools from a wider area, instead of just pulling in, oh, we're close to this 4A, but we don't want to play 4A. We'll just recruit the best from every AA within a 50-mile radius or something crazy like that. So, I mean, it would have to. I would say they would have to weight it, but we'll have to wonder if we'll see that out. Maybe I'll pull that clip out and we'll use it to promote the show. But we'll talk about that more whenever we come back to football season. That's it. We had a long show, so we'll end this one, and we'll come back next week with some all-star stuff. Who knows what Le'Veon Bell will do, and a lot of stuff to hit back up on as we get ready for football season. So you've been watching the Southbound Sports Show. Follow us, Southbound Sports, on Facebook and Instagram, S-Bound Sports on Twitter. I tried to come up with a better name on Twitter, Southbound something, but sports does not fit still. So if you have any suggestions, let me know to make that one easier to find. You can also watch us live on YouTube, Southbound Sports. And thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.